What's up, humans? You're listening to the What is Humans podcast with Shane Strunk and Dennis Kluba. Make sure to follow us on our social media pages. On Instagram at What is Humans podcast, on TikTok at What is Humans podcast, and on YouTube at What is Humans podcast. Today, Dennis and I are discussing Notice the Gaps. Enjoy. Hey.
You're listening to the What is Humans podcast with Shane Strunk and Dennis Kluba. If you've never listened before, this is your first time. The What is Humans podcast is a personal development podcast in which Shane and myself, Dennis, explore conversations and topics that are going on in our own personal lives and hope that we can add some value to you and your life at home. And most importantly, we're experts in almost nothing.
What's up, man?
Nothing much. First and foremost, some congratulations is in order. Over the weekend, you embarked on, what is this, your fourth marathon maybe?
Yeah, fourth.
Fourth marathon outside of Seattle, Washington.
Yep.
Bowen Oak specifically.
No, it was actually North Bend.
North Bend, Washington.
Yep.
Either way, Jack and Jill Marathon, you crushed it.
Yeah, it was a PR, and I got my Boston ticket finally, so that's been a goal of mine, and just happy and relieved I'm through it, and it was a great experience. It was just a journey I've been on, so just a milestone. I don't feel any different.
Yeah,
things that we talk about, it's like, hey, I've just enjoyed the journey of running, so it's just another day.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's I think how it should be, and like you said, a lot of the things that we have talked about, and I think that we'll continue to talk about, especially today, with our topic, Notice the Gaps.
Yeah. This is a interesting idea that you brought me. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you found this guy.
Yeah.
It's this article about finding your purpose, finding your passion, finding what you're good at. Mm-hmm. Do you want to introduce maybe who this guy is and maybe what you originally thought of this idea?
Yeah, so the website is Paul Graham. It's basically his website.
It's his blog.
His blog, exactly. And he has a bunch of different essays on this website of his. And I came across it, of course, on TikTok. Yeah. But it was, exactly. But the essay that is technically titled How to Do Great Work, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Background on Paul Graham is that originally he founded like Viaweb in the 90s when the internet was blowing up. Later founds the Y Combinator venture capital startup, which ultimately became one of the most successful startups in current history.
Funded like Uber.
Yeah, and Coinbase, a bunch of other ones that I'm forgetting. Either way, he puts all of these essays up, and some of them are really long, some of them are really short. This one happens to be pretty long, but I was reading through it, and there are a lot of themes within it that Shane and I have talked about for a long time. But I think that the first thing that was really interesting to me was I was a little bit relieved and pumped that a lot of the things that we have talked about
are similar.
He was like, this is what you should be doing.
Follow your curiosity. Do what you're good at. Those types of things,
And so that was definitely my initial reaction. But then as I read on, he definitely expands upon some of the things that we've started to try and figure out when we talk about finding our purpose, finding that fulfillment. That is kind of where we want to go today with that Notice the Gaps.
Yeah, cool. So I guess the idea of Notice the Gaps, like what it meant specifically is like, once you're trying something, well, the first step was to find something you like. And then the second was like, once you have something you like, really push. You need to push within that to the frontier, or become an expert, or really just dive into the water, dive into the deep end of something you're interested in.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're going to find gaps. You're going to find questions unanswered. You're going to find no one else doing the same thing you're doing. You're going to find the edge of things. And that's where this Notice the Gaps theme came from and what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So, and then after one step further, once you notice the gaps, that's when you start to explore the promising ones, and that's how you do great work.
Right.
He says.
Right.
The thing about that really interested me was, and we were kind of playing back and forth with before we started this pod today, was this idea of kind of the frontier of knowledge or the edge of knowledge of that industry, that path, that field that really sets, yourself on fire. If that's, you're curious about it, you're really good at it, and how you have to go deep dive into that edge of knowledge in order to start to see where, we could do this better.
Yeah.
This has never been done within this.
Right.
And people aren't really focusing on this.
Right.
And that was just something that initially I was like, wow, you're right. You do have to get an extensive, deep amount further into one subject to even begin to see those. Because if you're always on the surface, you can't tell where there's room for improvement.
Right. I want to ask about perspective.
Yeah.
And specifically when we are putting a lot of effort in many different things, many different aspects of our life, a lot of our time, attention, detail in many things.
Yeah.
We did a whole topic on the book Range of how it is beneficial to be a generalist sometimes, to be a jack of all trades sometimes. I want to talk about perspective or ask you about perspective in this case of being very specific or being an expert, in this one thing.
Yeah, I think, and I am right with you. Similarly, we have both done a lot of things and tried a lot of things. And so I definitely don't knock what we said nearly, I don't know how many episodes ago, of being generalist.
Yeah.
My thing is that at the beginning of this article, or maybe later, I don't remember, essay, Paul talks about figuring out what that thing is that you like and that you're good at. And
a way to do that
is to do many different things.
Right.
And one of the things that he says is a pitfall of maybe the school system or finding out what you want to do is that we choose something. Think of your major.
You have to pick a major.
Yeah.
You have to pick a job that you're going to learn a lot about.
And there's somewhere that somebody says, oh, this is what it's like.
This is how you're going to contribute to society.
And in reality, it'll take 2 years or so for you to really figure out if that's your thing.
Right.
If you love it, if you can see yourself doing this and having the passion for it over an extended period of time. So, back to the generalist question and perspective, you do need to do a lot of things, like we've said before, in order to find
what you like.
But I would argue, again, that when you go to set out to try something new, you should give it time and be like, hey, I need to put in a year at this hobby, at this job.
Need to put in effort and time,
to really know if you like it or if you don't, or if, you're good at it, etc.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself and think, oh, the first 2 weeks I didn't like it, I'm not going to do it again. It's like you're doing yourself a disservice.
Sure.
If you do it that way too.
Yeah. I think it's also asking what is it that you don't like about it, or what is it that you do like about it? I think we can be blinded by our own ambitions, or it could be our feelings around it can be very misleading. It's maybe it's the pay, maybe it's the environment, or how it makes you look, many external things that aren't truly asking, do I like this or do I not?
Yeah.
Do I not like this because it challenges me, it pushes me? Is there fear around that?
Yeah.
And if it's those feelings or those circumstances of fear or of challenge, maybe it's not that you don't like it, it's just that you're unwilling to embrace that fear.
Yeah,
so completely. It's really trying to understand if you truly like it. I don't think there needs to be a time limit of 2 weeks, 5 years, say in a job or something you're exploring. But once you figure that out, I think that's the goal, is to figure out if you like it first.
Yeah. Completely. And then I think as part of that, it's not necessarily time like you said, but it's recognizing right away maybe where that pain or where that fear is coming from, within it, and realizing, okay, in this role, in this job, in this field, is this something that I want to go deep on?
Yeah.
And really get down to the nuts and bolts. And he says one way to truly know if you like something is there is always, no matter what, in any field, in any job, things that people just don't like to do. That's why it's work. That's part of work.
Definition of work, yeah.
But if you are like, hey, I'm interested in this and other people aren't as part of the job. For example, we've done this podcast for forever. Something that's not fun about it, which you guys don't see, is we have to upload it and edit it.
Sure.
And like for us, that is something that like a lot of people I'm sure would be deterred from doing it.
Yeah.
But we find it like,
well, yeah, it's part of, it's like we love doing the conversations so much more than the
behind the scenes,
the unsexy activities of the job.
Yeah.
And it outweighs it.
Yeah.
So it's like a pros and cons of, hey, this is more valuable than the grueling effort of editing, of clipping, et cetera.
And that's the thing where it's like you can figure out that you actually like doing that thing, because the things that aren't that fun, you're still like, yep, I want to do it. And that's the same thing with running too. It's like there's times, especially in your training block, I'm sure, that there's runs or portions that you didn't really want to do. But I know from being here and doing blocks with you before that it's like you're satisfied when you do that hard run, even though when you start, you're probably like,
yeah, it's like every like hard workout, or even on easy days, some runs just seem hard. And I think the act of beginning and doing just gives me like a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Once that is done, it's so much easier to go on throughout the rest of my day to tackle my next task.
Yeah. One question I was going to ask you, and maybe it's something that, will lead us closer to this whole idea of notice the gaps, but how hard is it, do you think, to recognize, he talks in the essay about, finding that thing that you want to do or doing good work, of having a natural aptitude for something, meaning natural ability, you're naturally good. Do you think I do, but I want to know what you think of, is it hard to tell yourself that maybe there's something you're really interested in, but you're just not very good at that thing?
Sure.
To be honest with yourself and say, hey, I love X, but I'm just not meant to do that. I can know it, but it's not, what I want to do. Do you think that's like a hard decision to kind of...
Yeah, I think it's like, man, it's like a very difficult question you have to ask yourself about a job you have, or about something you like. It's like, I don't know, I think of like soccer, or I think about, I think soccer is a clear example of like, am I meant to go pro? Like, am I meant to, like, although I love it so much, doesn't mean that the love will get you there. Like, that's not enough. Yeah. There's so many factors, and there's so many dreams that people have, and some things you aren't meant to do, some things you aren't that great at. Yeah. You have weaknesses, you have things that you're really good at. So it's finding out and being extremely honest with, what is it, something that you like that intersects with something that you're good at, that you have an aptitude for. Exactly. That's the spot we're looking for.
Sweet spot. And I completely agree with you. It's like, and you mentioned soccer, and I think that, the storyline that's kind of portrayed, I feel like a lot of times in this, is that, people don't really know where they fit in sometimes. And I think that when you try different things, talking about natural aptitude, for us at a young age, soccer was pretty obvious that we were both pretty good at it.
Sure.
And going through life, you kind of know, either in social settings or at work, there's things that you can feel you have a natural knack for. And I would say that those things, along with, wanting to dive deeper, wanting to go deeper, those are the things that you want to chase. And so when you're like looking at interests or things to get in and, maybe dive deeper on, look at things that you already do in your life. If, Maybe you're really good at planning things like with your friends and you like doing that. It's like, that's a whole career.
Right.
You know, so just look around and be like, okay, people always say that I'm good at X, but I never really considered that as like a job or like a fulfilling thing. Everything can be like a job.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's like, look at your own behaviors of what you're already good at. And it doesn't need to be in a job setting or in any professional setting for that matter. It's like, look at something that you're already interested in as like a compass to what you should explore more.
Yes. And then once we move past that, this is the part that's technically the whole topic that we're on, is this idea of noticing the gaps. As you get deeper and deeper into that thing, whether it's an established career or not, you know, you're kind of doing it as a side business or a side hobby or side hustle. It's like, you can kind of look at, okay, I don't know anybody else in the market that does it this way.
Right.
I don't know anybody else that, you know, coaches this way or offers this thing. I'd like that thing in my own life. Maybe I should try and do that. Mm-hmm. But it takes extensive time and research to know what's on the market and what's not, what's been done and what hasn't.
Yeah. I'd argue this whole topic is like the definition of authenticity. It's like a completely different way of how to look at authenticity or how to like be your unique self or define your calling or your life's all these different euphemisms that we throw out. Yeah. I think that by meeting at this intersection of doing something you like, something that you have the aptitude for, and that you are something that you have a unique ability to do, a unique gap that you can find, that's the sweet spot of authenticity.
Yeah. And I think that in opposite ends of the spectrum, he mentioned, there's going to be things that you're good at that you might not love. And when you look at your life over a career, and you're going to say, to do great work like the essay says, you have to not only be good at it, but also have the willingness, you're interested, and you're curious about it. Because over time, when you think about, a career or really going deep, your diligence, your work ethic will only take you so far.
Right.
Versus that interest, that pure internal curiosity for, man, I love X. I love, this math stuff, or I love teaching, or, these types of things. That, even when you're older, will be like, oh, I can still do this for days on end. I can talk about this forever. And I think that a lot of times we can get sucked into that of maybe there's a job, maybe there's a career that you're pretty good at. Mm-hmm. But you look down the road 10, 15 years and you're like, man, at 40, 45, am I going to be like, on the weekends, do I want to talk about that? Or am I going to be like, man, I don't want to talk about work at all?
I think it's also interesting of what it looks like having one of those pieces missing. So you gave the example of a work or a career, a work setting or a career or a job that maybe it's something you're good at, but you don't love.
Yeah.
What about the opposite of something that you love, but you're not good at?
Exactly.
It's like, maybe for me, that was soccer.
Yeah.
It's like in a career setting, there's many jobs where people don't feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
So I think asking yourself, those two, have to be yeses in order for that to be your thing. Yeah. And if one is missing, you're going to know it sooner or later.
Exactly. That's why I asked you early on of, how hard is it to make that call and say, hey, I love X, but I'm just not as good as the other people at this.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to make that hard decision of, okay, I am not going to be as great at this as I want. I can't do great work here.
Right.
I can do okay work, but not great. But yeah, I think that's the way that he laid it out, and kind of like you said, having those two yeses and then noticing the gaps when you're able to get past that kind of barrier of knowledge gives a great groundwork of real clear steps of how to find what you're supposed to do and then how to do great work within that field.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So let's talk about some hows maybe that we could practice or that our listeners can think about?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to steal from the whole entire essay, but one of the things that I do want to say that we talk about extensively, and it might not be number one, but he just talks about in the essay, the biggest thing you can do if you don't know what you want to do, shoot yourself in the foot, is be passive. You have to be active and try things. And most of the time, those are going to be projects that you do yourself. Your work, your school is not going to give you...
Yeah. Are you drawing? Are you making music? Are you running a lot?
Going to different things, new people, new, options.
You have to be active if you want to make any kind of change.
Yeah.
And if you let life pass, there isn't going to be change ahead of you.
So I think that being active right off the bat is one way to begin that journey of finding that intersection of something I'm good at and something that I am I have an interest or like a love for.
Yeah. I think this is from the article, but we'll make it our own, is how you have to be trying new things. Just because we're in the same boat as probably our audience in this of trying to find purpose or trying to find something that truly interests you, is you have to go out and try many different things.
Yeah.
Many different jobs, careers, maybe it's places, settings, to find that one thing that you like. So I think that first step you said of being active in that, and then the experimentation to find the thing you like.
Yeah. And just to continue on that note, it is just we mentioned generalism at the start, but I know this is true for me. I'm pretty sure it's true for you too. It is so easy to find that job, that security from college or from school and say, okay, this is what I said I was going to do. And never have the strength to be like, man, while you're young, figuring it out, I got to go try something else to see.
Yep.
And I think that's what this is all about, of while you still have the time, and even when, you get further on, you always have time, take the risk and go see, maybe there's something I love more.
Right.
There's something I'm more interested in.
Yeah. As a third how, I think it's just once you have that intersection, it's explore things in depth.
Yeah.
Follow your own curiosities, try and be an expert in something. Really push yourself into a field or into the thing that you like and the thing that you're good at. Push yourself deep into that, because if you have that natural curiosity and that ability to do it, that is a unique value that you're going to be bringing to the world comparatively to trying to live someone else's life.
Completely. And a lot of times people, when they're giving advice on this, the general version of that is finding your niche.
Yeah.
Well, the only way to find your niche is to take that one thing that you really love and become an expert in that field of knowledge, like Shane was saying. And then you can begin to see so-and-so knows a ton about this stuff. I'm sure they have an opinion on X.
Totally.
They have an opinion on this. But the only way you can get there and find out that niche is trying a lot of things, and then going deep into okay, I really like this specific kind of thing. Let me tell you all about it.
Yeah. Awesome. Why are we talking about notice the gaps?
Man, I obviously I brought this kind of essay blog to you that I saw, but as soon as I started reading it, I immediately related it back to a ton of the themes that we have talked about, especially this year, 2023. And I think that it was a lot of the reassurance that we've kind of talked about, of that sweet spot of something you like, something you're good at, and then going deep into okay, I want to become great. I want to know a ton about it. And that really spoke to me and struck a chord with me on, to do great work, you have to like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And as much as you could be good at something, if you don't love it, it's going to be hard your career to do really great work.
Right. I feel like I've found that sweet spot a few different times in life. I currently I've seen running as something that I'm interested in and good at.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to dive deeper.
Yeah.
You know, in my career, I would say, one of the two has been missing. Towards the end of my soccer career, the ability maybe might have been missing. So there's always going to be jobs or things that you do and try where 3 of those pillars are going to be missing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find my unique perspective to bring to it. So that's why, I was interested in this.
Yeah, completely. Let's do a little recap. So today we talked about notice the gaps. That idea comes from an essay on Paul Graham's blog that was called How to Do Great Work.
Yep.
Essentially within that, we talked a lot about the different things that he talks about in the essay, like not finding things that you have aptitude for, you're good at, and that have the ability you can dive deep into in order to start to expose some of the places that there's opportunity for new thinking, a place to fill in with your unique thoughts and experiences.
Yeah. And then we got into our hows on like how we can notice these gaps. The first one was that you mentioned was how we just have to be active instead of passive.
Yeah.
Like if we really want to impact our own lives, we have to actively go out and try things.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my second thing is try multiple things.
Yeah.
Really experiment to find the thing that you like. And once we do that and you find the thing that you like and that you're good at, dive into it deep, like push the boundaries, like become an expert in it. Ask questions that haven't been asked. Because by doing those 3 things will bring your unique perspective to the world, your unique authenticity, and maybe it's a lifelong career or a thing that you can bring uniquely to the world. Completely.
And then why we're talking about this today, I really just talked about connecting with a lot of the things that Paul was saying in there and a lot of the things that I'm trying to achieve like Shane right now, which is finding that sweet spot of something I'm good at, something I like, and that has the ability to be expanded upon.
Yeah, very similar. It's I'm trying to find that sweet spot between those 3 things, and by asking those questions and by experimenting in many different fields or facets, I think I'll be able to find that.
Completely.
And I think that wraps another week of
What is Siemens?
Thanks, guys.